Welcome back to the Highway to Healing podcast, all about breaking the stigma of mental health in our communities. Today, we sit down with our very special guest, Glecie, as we discuss healing outside of Western medicine in the form of Reiki. Join us as we discuss what Reiki really is and our experiences with Reiki. You ready? Let's jump in.
Welcome back. This is the Highway to Healing podcast, where we are changing the narrative of trauma and healing in our communities. This is a super special episode here. We have our first guest, Glecie, here, and super special episode, especially for me, because, this is the person that actually inspired me to go on this journey myself. So we're going to tap in with Glecie here. Gless, how did you start? First actually introduce yourself.
So hello everyone, my name's Glecie. I've known James since my college years when I was in nursing school. Him and Allie are partners and Allie's my girl. That's who I went to nursing school with. So I'm a registered nurse by profession. And along this journey, I didn't necessarily identify with everything in the profession. And it wasn't until my healing journey that I basically discovered Reiki. And through that is how I feel I can really be in the position to help people rather than in my nursing career where I only treat symptoms after the fact. So I'm here now and I'm excited to kind of bridge all the healingness together.
Yes, absolutely. And the big thing that I got even from that intro was you're already in a healing profession, nursing, right? But we went on this healing journey, right? How did that start? What made you want to go on the healing journey? What, spurred that for you?
Well, so I'd say it all started probably December 2019. When I was first introduced to law of attraction. And so I was doing that well into the beginning of 2020. And it was going good for a while. I was really attracting some of the things I wanted, but that only works for so long. And basically, unless you do the shadow work, you can't really attract what you're wanting in life. And so, of course, COVID happened. So, they told us to stay inside. And I literally went inside and basically, felt my feelings. Like you guys talk about that all the time instead of suppressing all the things that, we were ultimately ignoring or covering up. I brought to life and ultimately healed those things. Some of that relates to my nursing career and my profession. Growing up, like most, I guess, Filipino families, they encourage you to go to school, get a job, or go to school, get a career, and somehow everything will work out for you. Well, that wasn't necessarily the case for me, right? And I'm not gonna, I'm grateful for my career and everything that has gotten me so far, but it's just, I don't identify with everything, I guess that it entails, especially seeing how now I understand that we're more than just our physical beings and that a lot of these physical ailments don't start physically. They start emotionally, mentally, spiritually first. And then if you don't address those at that moment, that's when it turns into these physical ailments, And so,
if you listen to the first podcast we had, I told y'all about that, right? This is the person, this is the source. It was you're having issue right here, your energy is blocked right here, and it's probably from some stuff that's unaddressed in your past.
Exactly.
Right? It's the reason. So I actually want to stay on that, right? You were talking about if you don't do the shadow work. Like, what is shadow work?
You guys brought it up. Like, it's basically the triggers that you have, you know, understanding why you're triggered by those things. Yeah, bringing to light the feelings that you weren't feeling or the traumas that you were suppressing. Ultimately bringing those to light, because basically your shadow self is like the part of yourself that, you know, is left in the shadow. And so if you're not bringing it to light, that's when those negative, whatever emotions, self-limiting beliefs come into play. And so it's like, if you don't understand why, then, and if you're not open to understanding why, then that's when you continue to live in, I guess, your limited reality, right?
Yeah, that's a big one. If you're not open to understanding, that's huge.
Yeah.
Like, Jay, go ahead. I see you. You got something to say.
No, yeah, I'm listening, man. I'm thinking about just how that is so important, about bringing that shadow person, that shadow side to light, because so many of us just keep it in the dark, and just like we said before, like we suppress it and we just try to ignore it and think that it's going to go away. And it actually reminded me of a metaphor that someone talked to me about before, about basically how that shadow, if you don't talk to that piece of your side of you, the dark side of you, it just grows and it becomes bigger and bigger and bigger until now you have to address it, and you're not equipped. You should address it when it was a smaller, like a little shadow, or like the darkness was smaller, but now the darkness is so big, it's clouded everything else in your life. So there's no light shining through. And so like, hear you say that too is just like amazing, because like it's so important. It's like so important.
Yeah, I agree. And that's,
I think, go ahead.
Exactly what I feel like 2020 was for a lot of people. You know, we were, like I said, forced to stay inside and feel our feelings. And, you know, we didn't have the distractions of going out and being social with friends, or like basically numbing ourselves with alcohol, drugs, whatever. And so, yeah, I'd say that was 2020.
Attention.
Oh, yeah, that too. Attention, yeah.
You just like distract yourself, right? You find ways to distract yourself from the real problems.
Yeah.
There was I've done a couple sessions with you for Reiki, but one of our sessions, I had some hip pain that you focused on, and you kind of said some stuff that made me think, like, isn't it funny? Because your partner also had some leg thing going on, right? You're like, isn't it funny that you guys aren't really athletes like that, and then you have these ailments for mysterious reasons? Like, can you expand on that some more?
You know, energetically, we all have down our body energetic centers. The main ones are 7. And so when we talk about our lower, and it's called chakras, our lower chakras, so our foundational one is our root chakra. And so that physically has to do with like our tailbone, and anything below that kind of like our, you know, our feet, our knees, anything in that area. And so I'd say mentally, emotionally, spiritually, and physically, or I guess no, without the physical aspect of it, like anything, you know, in your childhood that was disrupting or traumatic, or if you even had like, you know, basically an unstable like upbringing, or life-changing, that can have physical manifestations on your body. And so for some people, yeah, you know, like a death, or, you know, an abusive upbringing even can manifest in those lower chakras. Like someone I know who, yeah, isn't really an athlete, but all of a sudden has like knee pain and like has had surgery for it. And it's just like, well, why? Like, you know, what really happened, basically.
Yeah, what's the cost?
Yeah, exactly.
What's the reason? Yeah.
It's funny because
I think that's important for any of our listeners, any of our community, right? If we have these phantom pains that we can't explain, maybe it's not a physical thing.
Exactly.
Maybe it's not
exactly.
like I bumped my knee, now I got knee pain. Maybe it's something that you need to address
Mm-hmm.
internally. I think that's very important. When we're talking about healing, there's a lot of stuff,
That's
right?
key.
And our body will tell us, our spirit will tell us
Exactly.
some way. It's trying to get that message to us that
Exactly.
you have some stuff that we need to address. So when you have those phantom pains, maybe it's like, okay, I need to figure out what I need to address. And knowing your chakras will be very important for that, because if I don't know that my root chakra is part of the knee, or the knee is part of the root chakra, then I won't even know that, oh, I need to address something in my root chakra.
Exactly.
Right?
Yeah.
But you had a journey, right? Because there was a time where there was a shaman at one point. So take us on your journey from the law of attraction to you becoming a Reiki practitioner.
Yeah. So, so like I said, at the beginning of the year, I was mainly focused on like law of attraction. And then COVID happened. And then, for some reason, I wasn't just really identifying with it. And I knew like there were some deeper things to address. Like for some people, I guess their mindset with law of attraction is like, oh, just positive thinking, positive. That's essentially toxic positivity.
Toxic positivity.
And then so I knew I had to address other things, but wasn't sure how. And then, of course, as divine timing would have it, a Filipino shaman, Lynn of I Am Herbalaria, she posted that she was doing an ancestral journey. And I felt called to do it, and I did it. And so I would say that was really the start of me understanding that who we are as individuals is not necessarily what happens in our lifetime, right? It's ancestral. So it's, like the ancestral trauma or the generational trauma that has happened the generations before us. So that was huge, because it made me see that everything in my reality is a lot bigger than just me. It's the years before me. So that was the start of it. And then when I continued sessions with her, she actually told me about one of my past lives. And like, this is basically what started it all for me. And she said that in one of my past lives, it was during the Inquisition, where women were basically being persecuted for being quote unquote witches, or considered witches to ultimately the patriarchy, right? Because of how powerful they were considered. And I was basically blamed for crop failure and for the deaths of certain people. But ultimately, what I was just trying to do was help people. And so when you bring it into this lifetime, it manifested as me being a nurse. So that's me still helping people. But in today's society and Western culture, being a nurse is, I guess, one of the only considered or acceptable ways of healing people. And so
doctor, nurse,
exactly,
Western medicine.
So and then it kind of just all made sense that that's also why I had difficulties like speaking up for myself, or being afraid to like step into my power, because I was persecuted in the past for it, and so basically when she told me that, I, for some reason, had a calling to do Reiki. And like, I had known and heard about Reiki since my college years, but for some reason I received a download like, you should do Reiki. And so after that call, like, I was researching like Reiki classes, and ideally wanted to do in person, but again, COVID, it wasn't really a thing during that time, and I didn't want to do an online class. And then again, as divine timing would have it, that's when Britt came out of maternity leave and posted that she was hosting a Reiki in-person class, and I took it, and everything just in divine timing and in alignment. And once I learned about Reiki, everything kind of just fell into place with that. So, yeah.
Yeah. And, in the first episode, I really talked about how I was trying to do the things that you were doing, right, following your path.
Mm-hmm.
But the reason why we started the Highway to Healing was because everyone kind of has their own path, their own
Mm-hmm.
speed. So after you had seen the shaman, I wanted to see the shaman, but I didn't feel as called to it as you did, I think. So I didn't end up doing that. But when you started the Reiki part, I was like, yeah, that's something I can get on board with. And I just say that to say, you know, just because one person is doing it and it's working for them doesn't mean necessarily that's for you. It can be something else in the healing. And that's why we started this, to open up people's minds and their world to, it's not just the socially acceptable way of healing, right? I'm trying to get out of that pattern of saying the traditional way, because really the traditional way is what you talked about.
Yeah.
Right. Our ancestors did other types of healing.
Exactly.
So the traditional way for us is not Western medicine.
Exactly.
So, and this is something that both you and Jay have talked about, which is separately, right? Yeah. So I kind of want to get into that a little bit too. Like, how do we change our thought process on healing when we see the only healers are, say, nurses and doctors and surgeons and things of that nature, when we're trying to step into this new form for us of healing, which may be Reiki or the shaman or what have you.
Yeah.
And that's really a question for both of you.
Do you want to go ahead, Jay, or?
I mean, it's hard, man, because you get prosecuted for not wanting to, you know, adapt to the Western practice of medicine. I get it from family members. I get it from a bunch of people. Like, I'm a more of a holistic approach, and I believe that a lot of the Western medicines and practices are not natural to us, and our energy and our beings, because, you know, we're talking about our generations and our history and our ancestry. We didn't have, you know, Western medicine, and we didn't have people in a lab putting together pills and things of that nature. So I try to stay away from it personally, just because of that, my understanding of that. And my understanding of how that has not been well for me and my body personally. You know, I tell people, and I believe I told this before, you know, I got addicted to like painkillers when I was in like a junior in high school and all that kind of stuff, because that's what we were told to do. You know, you take ibuprofen. And I was popping ibuprofen like they were Skittles. And I started realizing, like, this is not good. My mom looked at me one morning and was like, how many did you just take? You know, and I took like 1,000 milligrams of some ibuprofen.
That's young.
Yeah.
And she's like, and she's like, you're not supposed to take that much ibuprofen. I'm like, this is as much as I need to make my body feel better. And it was from kind of like that point on, I realized, like, I'm not, this is not good for me. I saw how it like negatively affected my body. And at that time I was very heavily on my sport. So I saw how it negatively affected me in my sport. And I realized, like, oh yeah, this is not for me. And I did more researching on just more of a holistic approach on how to do medicine. And throughout my life, period, I've always had these negative reactions to Western medicines. That was like a clear indication to me that this is not for me.
I think that's huge, especially when we talk about Western medicine, because I'm also in the healthcare field along with Glecie, right? Not all of it is quote unquote bad, right? There are some things that we do that is to get you better, but because a lot of it is big business, a lot of it is not to make you better. It's just to cure those symptoms, not necessarily that root cause of what's going on.
Exactly.
Yeah. I don't want to make you better for life, right? But when you look back at our ancestors,
just enough to get you
right.
For the
so
next
you have to
month
come back. You have to keep buying our pills. You have to keep buying this injection, whatever it is, right?
Yeah.
But if you look back at our ancestors, you got to think, like, if I'm a healer in my village, I don't really want you to come back. So I want to make you healed, because if you have to come back, that means, one, I didn't do my job, and two, that's more work for me later, right? So let's just make sure our people are healed so they can go out and at that time, right, bring back the village mentality that you talk about, Jay, right? They're all contributing to the village. So if someone's sick and in bed, they're not contributing to the village anymore. So I'm trying to make sure that they're better and not coming back, because that's more time that maybe the crops aren't getting harvested, or someone's not out there hunting, or kids aren't being taken care of. So if we can circle back to the question, Gless.
Yeah, no, it's a lot to unpack for sure. A lot of it is decolonizing, basically, decolonizing our mind, body, spirit, and releasing those beliefs that were enforced onto us from our ancestors and down to us, So releasing the idea that we go to someone else, a quote unquote professional who is supposed to know more about us than we do, ultimately in all of us, we are our own healers, and back in the day, we lived off the land, and plants were our medicine, and, or just compared to medicine now, it's most people go to the doctors and believe everything the doctor says and just basically are yes men to these doctors. And I see it all the time as a nurse, these people are taking medicines and they don't even know what for. Exactly. Don't even know what's in it.
If you don't believe that, listen to the Dr. Death podcast.
There you go.
And you'll see people will be prescribed with cancer that don't even have cancer just because medicine is big business.
Yeah.
So you never know.
Just challenging that mindset of it, again, I'm still in the industry and not all of it is bad, but, just challenging individuals to really understand that, if you trust yourself, if you're in alignment with yourself and your intuition, then know what's best for you and don't just accept what someone tells you is whatever wrong with you or tell you what you have to do. Question it and do your own research and or maybe identify what the root cause of it even is. Again, a lot of these illnesses are lifestyle preventative, diabetes, heart disease. That starts with your diet. It's as simple as that. And everyone knows that, but they just want a quick fix, right? Yeah. Treat it. Or
you have diabetes and you're it's fine that I go back to McDonald's because I'm just going to take my pill tomorrow.
Exactly.
Or take that insulin shot. So I'm good.
Yeah, exactly.
Exactly.
No, if you actually change the way you're living, you might be able to get off those pills. Right? Not saying don't take the pills because obviously we want to regulate our sugars and things and make sure that we're good, but also take those steps outside of taking pills.
Exactly.
So that you don't have to rely on pills for the rest of your life or injections for the rest of your life.
Yeah.
That's a hard thing for people to do too. One, you have to recognize there's a problem with you in terms of your actions and your behavior. And being around behavior, that's kind of my real study is behaviors and things like that. Working with students. It's hard to look yourself in the mirror and say that I contributed to this problem for most people. And once you do, though, it's even harder to hold yourself accountable to fixing that problem. So it's crazy that we're talking about this because it's real that people go through this so much, but they don't take the proper steps. And when you do start taking the proper steps, what usually happens is you'll see that people look at you funny. You start getting labeled. Really, because you're doing something that's outside of their behavior. And I was just talking to my buddy Jake yesterday about this, and it's not necessarily a reflection of what they feel about you. It's what you're making them see about themselves and their own behavior. And that's the hardest part. So when you start doing things that are outside of the norm, they start looking at themselves like, oh, what's wrong with me? But they don't know how to internalize that. And it instantly has to be you.
And that's, so that's a huge part of what we're doing, right? We're changing that narrative because it's the same thing when I think the first thing I thought about was a vegan person, right? Earlier in my life, I was why would you want to just eat salads all day? That doesn't sound exciting, right? But but now that it's now that it's more normal, though, now that it's more normalized, you'll meet a vegan person and it's just okay, that's cool. I'm still gonna eat whatever. You can eat the salad, but before you'd be like, the heck? What's this? why are you like that? Right?
Yeah.
So it's the same thing for the healing thing, right? If Gless comes up and she's like, yeah, I'm a Reiki practitioner, maybe right now it's like, okay, like
Yeah.
you're a witch again, right?
Mhm.
Just like how you were before, you're a witch.
Yeah.
But as soon as we normalize this more, or if you get into communities where it is normal, it's like, oh, that's cool. Like, when can I book a session with you, and or what have you, right? I know there's something that you wanted to say, Gless, but I want to get into more what Reiki is, so that the healers here on the community will know. How does Reiki work?
So Reiki is basically a Japanese form of energy healing where a Reiki practitioner either places their hands over your body or on your body. And this can be done distantly too either. It doesn't even have to be in person. But basically, like I was talking about the chakras in our body, they help to align the chakras or release anything over our energetic centers that are either blocked or underperforming. Yeah, basically helping balance the body, whether that's mentally, emotionally, spiritually, and physically. I like to say it's kind of like an energetic massage. So when you think about like a physical therapist, right, they're physically working over these knots and like painful tension filled areas. I would say the same thing with Reiki. It's similar to that, but energetically, but it can also help reduce physical pain as well. So yeah, that's Reiki.
And I know Jay just had a session with you and he wants to, take over from here. Go ahead, Jay.
Yeah, man. We just had a session yesterday, and was it yesterday or 2 days ago? But anyway, it was definitely amazing, honestly, to kind of go through the session and just see the little things that came up for me, so to speak, and just to hear once we were done and we're debriefing that some of the things that either I was manifesting or trying to kind of really dive deeply in for myself and trying to focus on were some of the things that Glecie kind of like brought up. And I was like, yo, what? And one of those things was my solar plex chakra. She said that she can sense that energy and that feeling of like tension and, the blockage. And when she told me that that's the confidence chakra, I was like, yo, that's crazy, because there are a lot of things that I struggle with and I'm insecure about in terms of confidence, and just what's going on currently right now and all the decisions and things that I have in my head about what this next chapter is going to look like. What's my next move going to be? Those things are all in the back of my head and back of my mind as well. So it was crazy for that. I also had like some tingling sensations. And she talked to me about those tingling sensations and what that means, and like how I had previous injuries in these places. And so that's why it's like that tingling. And she sent some energy there to, kind of fix it and heal it. And it was like crazy because I had it and then it was gone. So it's like, just all those little things that we talked about, that was pretty dope. There was a few questions though that I have for you, Gless, that I want to talk about, because you said that my chakras weren't like amazing, but they weren't like terrible either. And I was talking to one of my buddies yesterday about our session, and he was like, "Yeah, that makes kind of sense to me. You're more connected to spirituality than most people I know, so that makes sense that you'll be kind of balanced, so to speak." But we discussed, had this conversation around how do we prevent ourselves, or how do we prevent blocking our chakras? Like, what can we do to prevent that? And then the second question of that is, how do I know what chakras to focus on while I'm meditating and while I'm trying to clear them?
First, like bringing to light that there may be a problem or an issue or a blockage over an energetic center. And, they kind of all intertwine, like in terms of blockages, whatever stress that people occur in their daily lives, it doesn't always happen, or like it occurs differently in different areas for different people. Like, for some people, they hold their stress in their stomach area. And so basically, I guess the biggest thing is like, if you don't always understand mentally, emotionally, spiritually where the blockage is, it usually manifests as physical. And that's when you realize that there's a problem there, right? So like, yeah, if you have like a lot of stomach issues, like there's a blockage there, and like you need to bring to light, well, why? Is it because, whatever, like what's stressing me out, basically. And so essentially healing that area, you said, or you asked how to focus on the areas when you're meditating, right?
Yeah.
I like to tell people, like, wherever they're feeling the pain, or wherever they're feeling the pain, or know where their chakra needs work, is like placing their hands over that area and kind of really breathing into that space and send healing with your hands there. We're all made of energy, so everyone has energy through their hands. Not just Reiki practitioners. We're all, like I said, made of energy, so we have the power to like heal ourselves. So really breathing into that space, and like thinking of that chakra and the color that it's assigned to. Usually when we're meditating, it's a lot of your upper chakras that are more activated. So really pulling into the space, like if it's the lower chakras, making sure you're rooted, kind of, if that's the issue there. And then
that brings up another thing that came up in our session too, with understanding the root chakras and how I have not been rooted in terms of like with the universe, in terms of with like the ground and earth, and how those are things that I love to do, but I haven't been doing them. So that kind of brought up in our session, as well as like I used to always go to the ocean, right? Not the beach where like everybody's just running around shirts off and running around acting crazy. But my time, I used to love going to the beach was at night when no one was there, me and a few friends or whatever, and just listen to the waves. And that's what I used to do to kind of clear my thoughts and clear my head. And so I love that. And it was funny because you talked to me about, you need to go to the beach. Like you need to go back to the beach and get that sensation, that feeling. And it was just not weird, but it was just like interesting because I had recently, within the last couple of weeks, started listening to the waves to help me sleep. So it was like all these things are connected, and like the timing of it was so so refreshing for me, because it's like, okay, all these things I like have not really thought about initially are coming out, and it's actually being exposed. Like, this is my body, this is my energy talking to me about what I need to do to get back right. And so that was like I said, the session with me was really good. I loved it. But then here's another question that came up for me, for you, Glecie. I know I'm throwing you a bunch of stuff at you, but I love you, so you're the guru. You got this. How do we handle, because, we talked about our bodies being energy, which, we're all energy, right? And so we always talk about having a vibe, and people are like, oh, I vibe with this person. Well, that's just the energies of being aligned and connected. How do we handle like the negative energy we might receive from family that may cause us to have blockage?
It's really important to do self-care, filling your cup first before you are able to pour into others, and just being mindful and having the self-awareness that just because someone is feeling a type of way, that's not necessarily you. It's a reflection of them. So having that understanding that that it has nothing to do with you, and just being mindful of, I guess, or who you're even letting into your space, right? So that's a big thing. And obviously sometimes like you can't avoid that. So just energetically, mentally, emotionally, spiritually, having that in mind, that like you kind of have this like this aura or like shield around your energy, and not allowing anyone to kind of penetrate that. Because yeah, they can say all these negative things, but you don't have to accept it into your space. So you can use crystals, but not everyone has access to that. And you don't have to become reliant on it. So yeah, just being mindful of protecting, your energy.
Yeah, I think that's huge when we talk about, especially the little bit that you just said about crystals and not everyone having access to them right now. I took on crystals, like I went hard on crystals, right? Like that's where I put a lot of my energy, because like you said, when the association with colors, that's kind of how I started figuring out the chakras. And then when we actually sat down for our first session, it was crazy because you pulled out one and it was like, the reason why you're drawn to this is because it's for your throat chakra. And that I hadn't even really told you yet, but that was right before we decided we were going to start this podcast. So it's like, oh, you told me you have something you want to say that you're not able to say right now or something, right? Like you have something you want to get out there. And I was like, well, to tell you the truth, right, we're starting this podcast. And it's just crazy because I didn't tell you, but you had felt that. So there is that connection, right? Or when, like Jay, he felt that tingling and then it went away. That's the same thing that happened when I went in for my session and I had that hip pain, right? As soon as it was addressed, it went away. Like I haven't had it since. And that was almost a month ago now. And that was something that was ailing me pretty much every day for 2 months, 3 months. And then as soon as we had addressed it, it went away. So I just say that to say, listen to your body.
Exactly.
Because it's telling you something. Yeah. It's manifesting that in some way to be like, hey, like address this because we want to move forward. And other people can feel that in if they're in their energy space and they understand what's going on, they can feel that. And sometimes even if they don't, they just know like something's up with you.
Yeah.
Right. So you are affecting, you are affecting the people around you the same way they're affecting you and your energy. I just want to kind of thank you absolutely for coming on, but let the people know how they can find you, how they can book a session. Me and Jay have both had a session. We're probably going to run into a session right after this. So gotta cut this short so we have time to heal ourselves. But let the people know how they can find you, Glecie.
Yeah. Well, first of all, I want to thank you for inviting me to this space. All of this is new to me. Kind of talked about it before, how I wasn't really speaking up for myself or stepping into my power prior to working on myself. And so I'm really exercising my throat chakra here. But to find me on Instagram, I'm in Her Healings. I have a link there to book. And all my sessions are done virtually through Zoom. It doesn't necessarily have to be on Zoom because energy can be sent distantly. So you're basically in the comfort of your own home. And that's really what I appreciate about this practice, is that it doesn't have to be in person. And this is especially important right now when we can't gather. So, in Her Healings on Instagram.
And you know us already. This is the Highway to Healing podcast. You find us on Instagram. You find us on Spotify. Jay knows the tag. Hit him with the tag, Jay.
Sorry. Anyway, find us on Instagram. It's at the Highway, the number 2 Healing on Instagram. If you go to our Instagram, we have our link tree there. He take you to all our socials, YouTube. Like, subscribe, share it with a family, friends. Do all those things that to spread the community, because we're really trying to build this community here where we all can help each other. And trust me when we say this, just from doing this the last couple of months, we were spread out to a community of vast people who have reached out to myself, reached out to James, and this is what we need. This is what I believe our community is all about, and it's great to see that it's connecting with people. So, once again, guys, thank you. Thank you, Glecie, for my session. Thank you for being here with us today. Thank you to my co-host, James, for putting this all together, man. And this has been great. And
sign off.
Bye.
Highway to Healing podcast. Thank you for listening to the Highway to Healing podcast with your host, James Parker, and myself, Jay Tobe. We really hope you enjoyed this episode. As always, please follow us on Instagram at The Highway, 2 Healing, as well as follow us on YouTube, The Highway to Healing podcast. You can find us on Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, as well as Spotify. Do what you do, like, subscribe, share with your friends and family, and we really appreciate it. Let's build this community together.